Hello there, and welcome to this week's video tutorial. I'm your host Doman, and in this exercise I'm going to show you how you can mimic long exposures in Photoshop. I'll be using Photoshop CS to show you this technique, but the same technique can be done throughout the Photoshop versions. I think it could go down to, I don't know, version 2. So if you have Photoshop, I think you'll be able to follow along as I do this. Now the first thing that I want to show you is how you can do this exact technique without Photoshop. And this is basically it. What you'll have to have, of course, is a camera. It doesn't actually matter if it's digital or analog, but since we're doing Photoshop stuff here, I presume you have a digital camera. And what you also have to have is a tripod. Now, I wouldn't suggest you go out and pick out the cheapest tripod there is on the planet. I advise you to save a few bucks and go out and buy a quality tripod. So, once you have those two, we can continue. The image I have here in front of you is a diagram of the irises or aperture levels, as you would say in photography talk. So, what this actually represents is the amount that the iris is open and subsequently the amount of light that is put to the sensor, thus giving the image the amount of light necessary. But what I have to add here is that to get a pretty decent image, the amount of light that falls to the sensor has to be a certain, I don't know, amount. And how you can regulate this is to have the aperture open at a certain point, let's say f2.8, and let the shutter do the rest. Let the shutter adjust to this setting and to this amount of light that will fall to the sensor, and hence a good image will result. Now don't get confused by this information that I'm giving you. I'm just trying to give you a special free tutorial about photography and the photography basics. And perhaps if you would like more photography tutorials, you can maybe join the forums and say, Doman, I would like to see more photography tutorials. And our team here at ArtWorld will do the best to serve you. Anyway, to go back to the subject of apertures and long exposures, now we have a camera mounted on a tripod, and we have a scene that we would like to capture with a long exposure. So how do we do this? The answer lies in the maximum aperture, the maximum amount of closed aperture or closed iris as you call it. And what this will do is it will leave through the minimum amount of light possible. And while having this set, you will actually adjust the shutter to go at a much longer length. So let's say you'll have a shutter of 2 seconds or 4 seconds or what have you. And What this will do is record everything in motion which moves, and in our case we want to move clouds. So if you have a pretty decent picture that you want to capture, I suggest you add a natural density filter to the whole camera on a tripod thing, which will additionally reduce the amount of light flowing through your lens to your sensor, thus giving you a much greater time or a much longer exposure, which will result in a much more motionful, that doesn't sound right, an image full of motion. Yeah, that's sort of okay. So let's continue. What we have here is a photo of a Canon digital SLR and a Nikon digital SLR. So I will be able to show you where to get the aperture value set for the stunts or for the long exposure trick. Now, if we go to the Canon shots, just a second. Let me blow this up a bit. The aperture value that we have to set is located here. So you have to set the camera to go to AV mode. Now you can also use the manual mode, which is this little M here, but I wouldn't really advise it since you would have to know your aperture versus time value to get the correct and appropriate exposure. So now the Nikon digital camera differs a bit since theirs is only called A. So go to A or AV, whatever you use. If you use a digital camera from another provider, that's fine. Just go to the camera manual and find out the aperture value or the aperture priority modes, which you can set, and then set that to the most closed aperture or the highest aperture, and that's basically it. You'll get the same effect that we're gonna get in this tutorial by adjusting the image in the background. So let's go to the effect. Now what we want to do today, right now, is take an image full of clouds, and when I say clouds I mean really full of clouds, so that clouds cover up the whole sky, and only by this will we able to fully fake the effect that we want to do. So double click on this icon here, and this will bring up the quick mask options. Now what we want to do is that the color indicates the selected areas. The opacity doesn't really count, but whatever suits you is fine. I'll leave it at the default of 50%. Hit OK on that. And what you want to do is just draw. You have to draw with a brush at a certain size. Mine is pretty big since I have a 6 megapixel image I'm working on, and I have absolutely no idea why I didn't resize it for the tutorial, but that's really my problem, and let me not bother you with that. So what we basically want to do here is cover up most of the sky. I didn't say all of the sky, I said most of the sky. Since we want to achieve this in or out, motion, non-motion type of effect, and we will only get this by doing the same thing I did. Anyway, click on this icon or hit Q again. This will bring you out of quick mask mode and have this little selection. Now, if you didn't follow my steps accordingly, you didn't get a selection like this. What you got is a selection like this. This is wrong, and how you can adjust this is go to select and choose inverse. And what this will do is invert the selection so you get a correct selection this time. Anyway, let's continue. Let's go to filter, blur, and choose motion blur. And here we are. Now in this window we can adjust the angle of which the motion occurs, and we can try to figure out the best angle that this effect will be most appropriate. I think mine is somewhere over here, since I have a lot of streaks here and I want to fake the wind blowing in this direction. So the distance is really independent of the image. I cannot give you a general amount that you can put in and it will work, as it differs really amazingly from, say, a 1 megapixel image and a 6 megapixel image, which I still didn't resize, so I'm getting huge processor loads as I'm recording this. But as I said before, please disregard me. Anyway, I put in 124 in case anyone wants to know, and I just clicked OK. Just wait for this to close, and voila. Hit Ctrl D to deselect, or go to select and choose deselect over here, but in our case we don't have to. And this concludes our tutorial. We achieved an amazing technique. This technique really, and I mean really, enhances a lot of photographs. And actually you wouldn't believe how many photographs have been enhanced this way and not the normal way. Now, which one is better is up to you. I told you both techniques, both the analog version, which you can use in your camera, and the Photoshop version, which you can do in Photoshop. And this pretty much concludes our tutorial. We're taking requests at the moment, so if you want to see a specific technique translated into a video tutorial, be sure to check out the forums on artworld.si and tell us all about it. Open up a forum and say, Domen, I really enjoy your tutorials and I would like to see X. Anyway, you have a nice time now, and till next week, take care. Bye bye.